EUDR is a very sweeping reform. It concerns only the pellets industry, but other sectors in biomass, like cacao, for instance. This webinar will mostly speak about the pellets industry, because this is where everybody's from. And it has put pellets producers on some stringent requirements, such as they must be able to geolocate every biomass supply that they have. They must be able to prove that it comes from legal sources. And they also must be able to prove that it does not create any risk of deforestation after 2020. These regulations will enter full force for large and medium-sized companies at the end of the year in December. And for companies that are smaller, this will enter in June 2026. Although it's true that there have been a lot of talks in the EU Commission to delay by 1 year, but I would argue that we should be ready by late December. So we have 5 speakers who are going to speak about this thing today. We have first Xavier Lefevre, who is an international biomass trader, and who will explain to us why biomass traders need industry-specific ERP, so ERPs specifically tailored for the biomass industry to minimize their risks. And he will explain to us what are these risks. The second speaker, Céline Leroy, is the Vice Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Européenne de Biomasse, which is a French black pellets clean tech firm, which co-founded Biomass Centrale to make the biomass industry's first ERP worldwide. And so she'll explain to us why that firm that didn't make ERPs, that makes black pellets, decided to create its own ERP for itself and now for others. The third speaker and fourth speaker are engineers from Biomass Centrale who will explain to us the solution that they have found to meet this stringent demand for compliance that is emerging in the EU. The last speaker, who is myself, will explain why we invested in Biomass Centrale, why we think it's a good product, and what it can, why we think it will be commercially successful. First, I want to start with a simple question. Imagine you have 2 companies. You have one that follow all sustainable sourcing regulations, but fail to maintain proper documentation to prove compliance. So they do well, but they're unable to prove it. And you have another company that breaks some regulatory standards, but has complete traceable records to prove that they are compliant in other areas, and indeed they don't do more wrong than what they do. And so, yeah, the question is, which one is in a worse situation? The one that has good reporting and doesn't do everything all right, or the one that does everything all right but has bad reporting? Maybe I'll let you 15 seconds maybe to answer this. Or yeah, you can answer a bit later as well if you want. And I leave the floor to Xavier, the international biomass trader, who will explain to us what risks he faces in the industry and how to manage them. Xavier?
Yes, so good morning for some of you, so good afternoon for most of you. So quick introduction to introduce myself. I spent most of my career, at least the first 25 years, in financial trading for industrial companies, for trading firms and banks, and the past 10 years in biomass trading. And what I experienced in the past is the biggest change in my work, especially as a financial trader, following the 2008 financial crisis, is that controls became omnipresent, and the profession has been the trader profession has been transformed. After 2008, we spent really more time implementing procedures and justifying our decision than thinking about strategies and negotiating prices that was supposed to be our work. So what was happening is that as we put procedures in place, new rules appeared and we had to constantly review the procedure. So like a never-ending story. So during this period, I experienced that increasingly sophisticated risk management softwares were developed by smart people, and also electronic trading tools. So that was the start of the electronic trading, which automatically recorded all quote requests and provided auditors with an individual audit trail for all single financial transaction. At that time, to last long as a trader, you needed to also become half of your time a risk manager and obviously have the proper tools to track and trace your deals. So of course, I understood why legislators were implementing all those rules. And it was simply because those same legislators, authorities, they had spent a lot of money to prevent the bankruptcy of many financial institutions. We're talking the Lehman Brothers, Bank of America, and all those. I mean, Lehman Brothers was bankrupt, but some were really at risk. And some of them were deemed too big to fail, so they were bailed out by their government. Because weakened by losses on derivatives, they had only survived, some of them, thanks to public funds. So now biomass trading is a completely different business. Biomass is not paper trading, it's physical trading. It's non-hedgeable, it's not fully standardized commodity. But here too, you can see that government have also subsidized not the bailout, but the transition from fossil fuels to biomass on the basis of what we can call the carbon neutrality. So what is it? Most of you know what it is. And the principle is being that the CO2 released by burning biomass has previously been absorbed by the tree or the plant during its growth. So while this carbon neutrality is regularly called into question by the Green and by a lot of people, it is now generally accepted under several conditions that should be met by biomass producers and along the chain of custody. That is biomass producer, traders in some cases, and utilities. So the aim is that the biomass should be managed sustainably. That's the main word. And avoiding deforestation and over-exploitation. Plants and forests should be replanted. That's one of the targets. The life cycle, that is the distance between the forest and the boiler, should be as short as possible. And it should use the least polluting means of transport. So shipping is better than trucking, and you have a merit order. So I will not go here today into an exhaustive list of comparison of all the certification or legal obligation related to biomass. But there are many, and EUDR is the next one in the agenda, as you probably know. Like in the financial market post-2008, it's constantly evolving, and the common goals of all those certifications is now accepted by most participants, that they are sustainable management, traceability, and a neutral or reduced carbon footprint, which must characterize the biomass supply chain. Now, to describe a little bit my work, as a biomass trader, my responsibility is twofold. First one, it's verifying that the batches of wood I purchase from a biomass producer and resell to a distributor or a utility comply with two things. The contracted technical specification, but also the cargo should be, or the biomass should be compliant with the certification required by the end customer. So very different things. And if you, for example, for wood pellets, for the specification, you have a DIN plus EN plus, and for the certification, you have a SBP, SURE, and so many. So regarding technical specification, for example, there are mainly moisture content, net calorific values, ash and fine content for wood chips, And in addition, for wood pellets, you got durability. Regarding certification, the aim is mainly to ensure that forests are managed sustainably. And therefore, the control will focus on the origin of the biomass, geographical location, or type of forestry operation. You need to show the harvesting permits. I mean, unless you are in a country that is very 100% food proof. And you also need replantation. For example, you normally don't burn a wool tree unless there is a disease in the forest or wildfires. So in addition, some certification like SBP also requires the seller to provide details on the logistic and the volume of fossil fuel at each step, from the forest operation, forwarding, everything, cutting, to the transport, and including loading and unloading the vessel if you transport by sea. So obviously, saying that, I'm a big supporter of softwares such as Biomass Centrale, because it's making the life easier for myself, of course, my supplier, and my clients. And this is what we call the chain of custody. So everything should be right from the start to the end. And the target is to collect and report the various data and optimize the process of wood collection and sales in respect of the various certifications. Let me tell you something. For a trader, now I think certification has become more important than technical specification. For example, if you deliver a cargo that exceeds some spec in terms of ash content, moisture, or fines, you normally will find an agreement with the client to accept the cargo. And for example, some years ago, there was a cargo from that was loaded in Spain and delivering Denmark. And at arrival, they noticed that because they took some samples, that the moisture content of the cargo, it was like probably 5,000 tons, was below the 25% threshold. So to have the cargo accepted, the seller, after some discussion, the seller or the trader, they had to spray water into the vessel to increase the moisture from 25 probably to 30%. And finally, the cargo was accepted by the utility. So obviously the supplier incurs some losses, because when you put more water, then you decrease the net calorific value of the cargo. And if you pay in energy, in gigajoule, then you will pay less. But certainly the losses were less than if they had to bring back the cargo to Spain. So at the end, if that was there would have been an issue with certification, probably the solution would not have been found as easily. So now another example of what can happen if you don't properly report your sourcing. And that will be the end of my presentation, don't worry. In August 2024, Ofgem, that is the energy regulator for Great Britain, concluded its investigation into Drax Power. So most of you know about Drax Power, which is the biggest biomass buyer in the world, buying more or less between 6 and 7 million tons of wood pellets for power production in the UK. And while no evidence of unsustainable biomass was found, Ofgem identified weaknesses in data governance and reporting accuracy. Drax, following this control, agreed to pay 25 million pounds, that is equivalent of not far from 30 million euros, into Ofgem's voluntary redress fund, and they also accepted to conduct an independent audit covering 98% of their supply chain. Let me read a few extracts from the statement from Ofgem. Energy consumers expect all companies, particularly those receiving millions of pounds annually in public subsidies, to comply with their statutory requirements. There are no excuses for Drax's admission that it did not comply with its mandatory requirement to give Ofgem accurate and robust data on the exact types of Canadian wood it utilizes for the sourcing from Canada to Drax in the UK. And they added, the responsibility is on generators to meet their obligation in full. We are clear that consumers deserve transparency, which is why we have committed to publishing the findings of this comprehensive audit. And the statement is coming from Neil Lawrence, that was the director of Ofgem in 2025. So this case is very strong because it shows that even when feedstock is sustainable, and that was a little bit the question that was asked by Basile before my presentation. So even when feedstock is sustainable, weak data system and poor traceability can lead to heavy penalties and in some cases to reputational damages that may be more expensive at the end. So to conclude, as a trader that is, as you understand, in between the biomass producer and the utility, the boiler, I simply ask both my suppliers and my clients to make sure they have the proper system in place and to properly manage the certification, including the EUDR that is now coming. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xavier. To give us a small summary, I think this is very interesting that the biomass market is a regulated free market, and because it's non-standardized, it's not a standardized commodity. Then you need regulations in order to make sure that people more or less buy and sell the same product. And so maybe the reason certifications are so important is also because they enable some degree of standardization to make the market work. So the third poll that we have is about how your plant is currently handling biomass traceability and contract compliance. So there are four possibilities. Maybe you only use Excel and manual tracking. You may have an ERP, but that's not specifically tailored for the biomass industry. That's more for the oil and gas industry, the generic fuels industry. The third option is that you use a mix of General Fuels ERP and Excel manual processes for the parts that the General Fuels ERP cannot handle. And the fourth option is that you are still figuring that out, so you don't really know how you will handle the compliance requirements next year. Can you on the next slide? So I'll let you answer the poll while Céline gives her presentation. So the next speaker that we have is Céline Leroy, who is the managing director of Européenne de Biomasse, which is a black pellets technology company that tried to find an ERP that it could install, it could set up in its own black pellets plant, and wasn't able to find one and ended up making its own. Céline, I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Basile. Hello, everyone. So my name is Céline Leroy. I'm the managing director of Européenne de Biomasse, and I've been working at the company for over 10 years. Européenne de Biomasse is a French technology company that has developed, patented, and industrially scaled matter process that transform lignocellulosic biomass into HPCI, powder, or pellets. HPCI is used to decarbonize pulverized coal power plants. For several years, we supported the first HPCI plant using an information system we developed with our in-house software engineers called Biomass Centrale. Indeed, we couldn't find any software capable of addressing the challenges of a pellet production facility while managing supply, transportation, and sales. For example, an HPCI plant must manage numerous contracts signed with wood suppliers and transporters. Biomass tracking is essential, as it allows verification of the wood species, moisture content, etc. An HPCI plant receives nearly 12,500 trucks per year, so it is impossible to manually link its trucks data to a contract URL and supply plan. So we therefore needed a system that would automatically link all delivery and quality control data to a contract URL, ensuring that any non-compliant delivery, payment delay, or other contractual issue could be documented and reported to the supplier. The software evolved alongside the operational requirements of the plant, leading us to develop a digital twin that integrates the performance of each workshop and thus the overall productivity. Finally, a certification module was added to track all standards required in our industry, such as PRC or SBP, for which the plant was the first in France to be certified. Biomass Central enables us to monitor the PRC status of our suppliers, the carbon footprint of our transporters, and the production, and to automatically generate the documents required for certifications. So we can say that Biomass Central became indispensable because it greatly simplifies the day-to-day management of the plant. It ensures reliable and rigorous traceability throughout the entire process.
Thank you very much, Céline, for your presentation. To just summarize 2 points, oil and gas are fossil fuels, and so they don't have green certifications. So if you want to manage a green certification like a PEFC or SBP or FSC, or or you just want to abide by regulations like EUDR, because EUDR is not a certification, it's mandatory for everybody, you will lack a sustainability module to do so. You really need an ERP that's customized for the biomass industry. If people tell you, well, you don't have an ERP, it's customized for the general fuels industry, so it's not a completely non-customized. It's still for the energy industry and the fuels industry, but it's not specifically for the biomass industry. Then it's worth nothing in certification. Second point is that oil and gas are standardized, but biomass, as Xavier said, is not standardized. And so the logistics of biomass are much more complex because you need to control the quality in order to know whether the delivery is compliant or non-compliant. And so generic fuels ERPs made for the oil and gas industry assume the uniformity of the product, the homogeneity of the product. And so again, they don't have extensive quality control modules for that reason. Moving to the next speaker, Alvin Melindji, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Biomass Centrale, and who will present to us Biomass Centrale as a purpose-built ERP for the biomass industry. I leave the floor to Alvin.
Thank you, Basile. Hello, everyone. My name is Alvin Melindji, and I am the CTO at Biomass Centrale. What is Biomass Centrale exactly? It is an integrated management software designed for all actors in the biomass industry, from producers and traders to transporters and energy plants. Our mission is to simplify and digitize how biomass supply chains are managed, covering everything from procurement to compliance in a single connected platform. The system supports the entire operational workflow, including contract management with supplier and clients, quality control and delivery reception, dispute tracking and resolution, and finally, automated invoicing and financial validation. By replacing manual workflows, spreadsheets, and emails with a unified system, Biomass Centrale improves efficiency, traceability, and transparency across the biomass value chain. When we started, our focus was on integrating key sustainability frameworks. First, PEFC, for responsible forest management and chain of custody. Then RED 2 and RED 3 for renewable energy traceability and certification, and now the EUDR, which brings a new dimension of environmental responsibility focused on deforestation-free sourcing. On all this certification at Biomass Central, we've built dedicated EUDR features to help actors across the whole value chain fulfill their specific obligations, from traceability to declaration generation to risk monitoring. I'll now hand it over to Ovi Doki, our customer success engineer, who will walk you through the 3 key features that make this possible. The first one is the interactive map. Second one is the automatic EUDR declaration generator. And finally, the risk indicator dashboard. These features make EUDR compliance practical, automated, and directly connected to operational data, not just an administrative task.
Thank you, Alvin. So now that we understand what EUDR requires and how it impacts different actors in the supply chain, I'll walk you through the 3 key features we have developed at Biomass Central that make this whole process simpler, faster, and much more transparent. One of the core requirements of EUDR is to provide verifiable geographical origin data for every wood and biomass batch. In other words, to prove exactly where the material is coming from. In most companies right now, this is done manually, drawing polygons on Google Earth, copying coordinates into Excel, and trying to fit them into EU's required GeoJSON format. Now, this is tedious, technical, and most importantly, it's prone to errors. Our interactive map feature solves that. Every supply in the Biomass Central is directly linked to the digital map. The user can either draw the harvesting area using the built-in polygon tools that we provide, or import the coordinates straight from the GeoJSON file received from the supplier. The system automatically stores all the coordinates in EU standard WCS84 projection, and each map is completely dynamic. That is, you can zoom in, navigate neighboring parcels, and even visually confirm that the origin lies in a non-deforested area. The interface even validates whether the polygons that you have drawn are correct or not. This prevents common upload errors like open shapes or wrong file formats. Now, this replaces the manual GIS work and gives every batch a clear, verifiable geographical footprint. Now, it's visual, precise, and instantly compliant with EUDR rules, saving a lot of your time. Going to feature 2, automatic EUDR declaration generation. Once the origin data is set, our next step is to submit the actual EUDR declaration. This is usually the most time-consuming and error-prone part of the whole process. That is because it involves collecting a huge number of details from multiple documents and then ensuring that every field follows the EU format. Biomass Centrals automates this entire process for you. Once the lot's key information is entered, product type, supplier, country of origin, harvest data, and even the coordinates, the system compiles all of this into the exact declaration format that is required by EU. The declaration can be generated in either a PDF form for archiving reasons or the JSON file for direct submission to the EU's EUDR portal. Supporting documents like PEFC or FSC certificates, supplier IDs, and risk assessment notes attach automatically to this. The declaration includes all legally required data points like operator identification coordinates, risk assessment summary, and a unique reference number. Everything is complete and structured correctly. What used to take several hours of manual data entry and formatting can now be done in just a few clicks, accurately and consistently every single time. Lastly, the feature 3, lot list with risk indicator. Finally, once the dozens and hundreds of lots, like Céline mentioned, start moving through the system, keeping track of which ones are compliant and which ones still need a bit of attention becomes a real challenge. The lot list with risk indicator solves this by giving users a clear color-coded overview of all the batches in one place. Each lot is displayed in a list view with compliance indicator next to it. Now, green means that the lot is fully compliant. All the data and declarations are complete. You don't need to worry about it. Yellow means some information is still under review. Maybe some coordinates need validation, or perhaps certificate needs to be attached to the document. And finally, red means that the lot has some missing or inconsistent data that blocks the compliance. Users can even filter this list by supplier, country, or the risk level, and then quickly identify which lots need follow-up before the submission is done or auditing takes place. This provides a real-time snapshot of compliance across the supply chain, perfect for internal monitoring and audit readiness. It gives both operators and traders complete control and confidence over the EUDR status. So, in short, these three features work together to make EUDR compliance seamless. First, the interactive map ensures every batch has a verifiable origin. Then the automatic declaration generator builds the correct documentation just in seconds for you. And finally, the lot list dashboard gives continuous oversight of the compliance and risk. Together, they remove the complexity and make traceability something that users can actually manage day to day. Alvin will now wrap up by explaining how these modules combine into a complete compliance workflow for every actor in the biomass supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ovi, for the features presentation. To conclude, Biomass Central is designed for all actors in the biomass industry, connecting operations, certification, and compliance in one digital ecosystem. By integrating contract management, logistic, quality control, and due diligence, we enable companies to meet EUDR requirements efficiently and build transparent, traceable, and responsible biomass supply chains across Europe. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Alvin and Ovi, for this presentation. As a last word, I will explain to you why expansion partners invest in Biomass Centrale to give you a bit of an investment fund's perspective. So expansion partners is a go-to-market fund. So we look for companies or entities within companies that have a strong R&D, but lack the commercialization capabilities to turn their technology into a commercial success. And so Biomass Centrale is ideal because Biomass Centrale was not developed as a company that was to reach a market. It was developed for internal usage, for black pellets plants developed by EDB. So the R&D was very strong. They had there is a blue ocean market. We realized that most biomass pellets plants in the world still run on Excel. So they do not even have a generic fuels ERP, and I have never seen any biomass pellet plants having an ERP specifically tailored for the biomass industry. So most are on Excel, and a few are on generic fuels ERP. So none of them have an effective solution to handle EUDR, PFC, contract management with a non-standardized commodity, and so on. And the third point was that the timing seems perfect because with the incoming EUDR, we know that the purchasing cycle of these biomass pellets plants will start in the next 2 or 3 months because they need to get to the level of EUDR. If you are interested in having a walkthrough of the software more in depth, you can ask Ovidoki by scanning the QR code that's right on the screen. I hope that all of you found this webinar instructive. We discussed many things. We discussed what EUDR is. We discussed the trader's perspective, how international biomass traders find certifications more important than technical specifications nowadays to cover their own risks, and how they recommend to their clients to have ERPs that can handle certifications. Then we talked about the perspective of a black pellets plant who couldn't find an ERP that was specifically tailored for the biomass industry and that they could use in their own black pellets plants. And as a result, they decided to create an ERP by partnering up with computer engineers. Then we had a presentation of such an ERP, Biomass Centrale, and what it can do in terms of handling the regulations presented by EUDR in terms of geolocation of the biomass supplies, so making sure that they ensure with other legal requirements such as coming from legal sources. And last I presented you an investment funds perspective. So an example of a company that has very strong R&D and that we're happy to invest in order to enable them to reach the market. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this webinar, and I hope that we will see you soon on one-on-one demo.